Welcome to another edition of the Daily Night. I am your host, Brian Smith, and I am joined by Andrew Johnson once again. Andrew, thank you for showing up today, brother. We got some UCF Spring Ball talk and questions to go over. Today is Friday, and tomorrow at this time, the game will be getting ready to be ended.
Yeah.
It's a little after 2 o'clock on Friday when we're recording this show. So thank you for being on the show. What's going on, man?
I'm doing good, buddy. Happy to be back on the show. As you said, UCF Spring Game is tomorrow. I'm glad to see, or our fans should be excited to see some of this competition battles that we're about to talk about.
Absolutely. I think that UCF has more depth than what most know, and I wouldn't have known if I hadn't stopped by a few practices and just talked to, Gus and different people. The press conference has been informative. Travis and Coach Wins, everybody's been good about it, and the players too. So with that, I'm going to ask you some questions. I'll probably chime in on some of my own opinions as well. Yeah. But these are things that you and I talked about were kind of some of the pressing things that we were curious.
Yeah.
We kind of think, especially this first question, that fans will be quite interested in as well.
Yeah. Quarterbacks, man. That's the hottest topic right now.
It's not even close.
Yeah.
Which of the quarterbacks, Mikey Keene?
Yeah.
John Rice Plumlee, or even somebody else, I guess you could say, has the best day, and how are they utilized? What are your thoughts about the quarterback position for the Knights?
Yes, sir. So like most people, this is probably the position that I'm most interested in because like we talked about, I think they're still trying to figure out who that starting quarterback is. And obviously you're probably not going to find that out during the spring game. But I want to see how, Mikey looks in that offense, and I want to see how John provides that X factor, to Gus Malzahn's offense. But like we talked about, I think John, I just feel like he adds that addition to the offense to where he can use his legs and make a big play. But man, I'm sure some of you guys out there have seen it as well. Mikey's put on some weight. He has that experience. He may be leading this quarterback competition. So I'm really interested to see how they come out, and how the chemistry looks with some of the wide receivers.
That's a big part of quarterback play and why spring, I beat this to death in my articles. You cannot put a finite number on the number of reps the quarterbacks get with their running backs, tight ends, and receivers.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, you think about the great combinations even in the NFL. Jerry Rice, when he knew Steve Young was going to become the quarterback, because Steve was left-handed, in addition to throwing with Steve, he had somebody, they set up the jugs machine differently. He caught an extra 100 passes a day after practice because the spin of the ball is different from a lefty to a righty. I mean, little things. It could be the difference. You drop a pass, it could be the difference between winning and losing. So everything matters.
And those little things you talked about as well. I want to see who makes those pre-snap adjustments, who's reading the defense, who has that confidence during the game. Those are some of the things we'll be paying attention to as well. They've been talking about practice on their technique. So let's see who has the arm strength as well. So
I think that everything is going to be pretty vanilla, which is typical of spring games.
Yeah.
Gus has openly admitted he doesn't like to show stuff and talk about it, which there's some gray area with that. You got to compete. I mean, at the end of the day, you are who you are. So I know that Keene's the better passer, Plumlee's the better runner. Right. Now, how do they implement that? I personally think that at the end of the year, Plumlee will end up being the quarterback. At the beginning of the year, I have no idea. And I also think, I know you kind of feel the same, it'll be a 2-quarterback system in some capacity.
Could be.
How much?
Yeah.
I mean, I have a hard time believing at the 3-yard line you don't put Plumlee in the game. He is a nightmare in the red zone.
Come on, man. You seen that 80-yard run that he had during the spring practice? If you've seen that, that's that X factor that I'm talking about.
I didn't even see it, but I saw him run for 210 yards against LSU 3 years. I don't care.
There you go.
I don't need to see. When I went to both practices, I just watched the linemen because I know their skill talent's ridiculous.
Man,
I haven't focused on anything besides O-line and D-line.
He broke a tackle in the backfield and broke for 80 yards, so he definitely still has that spark. So,
yeah, Plumlee's a physical freak, and he's a guy that could play running back for you. I mean, he's just that kind of speed. So I want to see what they do.
You made a good point too. Really, I want to see what Gus Malzahn does. How wide does he open the playbook, and how many shots do they take down the field, or do they keep it?
That's interesting.
I want to see what they do. and how different does it look with Keene or Plumlee or even the freshman Castellanos. We haven't talked about him much, but man, he has legs and an arm strength, and he could emerge as a starting quarterback as well.
I've seen him live. He has a cannon. Now, does he know where to go with the ball? I'm guessing that second part is still no. Quarterback play takes forever to even be mediocre.
Decision
at the college or pro level.
That'll be a big thing.
Because it's all about schematics. They show you one thing before the snap, the ball goes, and then they change, and then you're like, uh-oh.
And the speed so
Some guys can handle that while a 280-pound guy's coming at him. Yeah. Others cannot.
He definitely has the talent. He has the talent. Learning the playbook, learning that speed difference from high school to the next level. Those are the things, and throwing him in that real game action will be interesting because he might make an interception or two just for being a true freshman.
Oh, 100%. All right. The next question, this is one that I'm not sure is even concerning, but it's just interesting. UCF's offensive line should be good.
Offensive line, okay, yeah.
Offensive line should be good.
Yes, sir.
You and I both kind of think the same in terms of who the line will be.
They're deep.
Grable.
Right.
The big Hawaiian.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't get enough credit. He's a really good football player. Matt Lee. I think Jackson moves inside. Big Sam.
I think so as well.
And then Swoboda, I believe, will be your right tackle.
Yeah.
But the good news is they're not done there. They have Collins. They have Medley that have experience. And they've got some younger guys that got some experience too. Right. Plus, they've got Caden Kittler coming in.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that, and again, in a spring game, it depends on how you want to do it. You could mix one. Like sometimes this is goofy. They'll play a team against a team, but players will mix too.
Yeah.
Because the coaches want to see combinations.
I know they like to do that, but I'm hoping that they send that starting five out there so we can see and we can see what the chemistry looks like with the real starting five.
The ones versus ones, if you're going to, here's the other part of that. What does the offensive line do? It protects the quarterback and or the ball carrier. I'm sure there's the concern about having guys live, but in one of the practices, quarterbacks were flat out live.
Yeah.
Gus runs a system where the quarterback must move and he's got to break tackles. There's no way to simulate that unless it's just flat out the real deal.
Yes, sir.
But if you're putting either Mikey or JRP in front of a quote-unquote hodgepodge O-line where there's no chemistry.
Yeah. That's very dangerous.
You know what I mean? You can't have somebody like Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste.
No.
Exactly. He's 230 and he coming downhill. That's no good.
Or like we talked about, you got Tre'mon and Josh coming off the edge.
Yeah. So
somebody. But yeah, we want to see the ones come out and see how impressive they look together.
And I'm not demoting the concept of seeing the younger players and the backups. I certainly do. But we need to see just how good that O-line is because, number one, keep as many guys healthy as possible. Number two, and I didn't even put this in the questions because it's just so deep, the running back group is really talented. I don't even need to talk about it.
We're probably touch on that.
Yeah. If you don't know that UCF has a deep room of running backs, you have not read my site, Inside the Nights. You know nothing about
the show, man. We talked about running back group multiple times.
We talk about it all the time because they're just so darn good. They have 2 or 3 NFL running backs at least in one freaking running back room. So let's not even worry about that. That's going to take care of it. But I would still like to see Bowser get a chance to bounce one outside and go, or Johnny take a screen and get a good kick out, but whatever.
I want to see how they look running behind the big Sam Jackson if they move him in. That's going to be interesting. With Matt Lee, those are some strong guys. Hand strength is incredible.
Oh, yeah. The 1-2, when they double team somebody, Lee and Jackson, that's not a lot of mass going in one direction.
If Bowser coming down on you, they're going to weigh down on some teams.
Between those 3 guys, that's like 850 pounds.
Yeah. I don't know if they're going to have to change the UCF speed because it might be UCF pounded now because they're going to be pounding it.
Yeah, that's a lot. So I just wanted to throw that in there. We're not going into the whole running back thing, but look, we're well aware that they're good. So in case you were wondering why we're not going to go into that and discuss it. Here's the one that I put a tweet up on my tweet with my Inside the Nights Twitter handle.
Okay.
Which guy ends up having the best time in this game?
Okay.
We got Jaylon, we got Kobe. that two right there, I could have just left it because they're battling for position.
That's what I was going to say. Jalen Griffin, man, I just think he comes out with that edge. He's like you just pointed out. He's battling for that boundary position.
He could be that guy.
And people have been talking about him too, so I'm interested to see how he is in live game action.
Well, I mean,
what do you got?
I think it'll be very close. Number one, they'll both get equal. They have to let those guys play a little bit because they don't know who the starter is.
Yeah.
So from a fan and a media perspective, which one makes the play?
Right.
It'll be razor thin, is my guess. From talking to Coach Hurd, from listening to off the record stuff, and just what little the other players have said about the receiver position, that ought to be pretty good. But don't discount somebody else. And my pick, actually, I haven't even voted on my own poll, is actually a certain tight end that's transferred over from Florida.
Ooh, that's a good pick. Let's hear it.
I just think that Keymore Gamble,
man,
forget playing against UCF, but he's as close to a big receiver as you're going to get. He's 240-ish, give or take. And he's got a lot of experience. He's an athlete. He's from Miami. He's used to going against competition since he was a little kid. I don't think he's going to have a small role. He'll have one or two big plays, and he might even be, depending on how much they throw, which no idea. He could be offensive MVP because play action with RPO in the red zone, tight ends are a pain.
Man,
that's why Gus needed tight ends.
Having those two tight ends so valuable. Bring them in the block,
100%.
Spread them out as bigger wide receivers. Holler can catch, Scramble can catch, and you got the younger Stevens. Oh man,
I think that's a really intriguing situation. I don't know. Maybe they don't want to show it, but from a physical standpoint, and watching, I went back and watched some of his film when he was at Florida and stuff. I'm like, I talk about wasted talent because their quarterback play was so bad last year. Prior to that, he had to wait because they had the superstar tight end, and then when he gets his chance, they don't have quarterback. Right. So, it is what it is.
Right. That's a good pick, though. That's a good pick.
I enjoy watching him play. He's just a good football player. So,
and just to touch on the Jalen Griffin really quick, we know Ryan O'Keefe and Jalen Robinson can provide that speed, but me personally, I'm looking for a guy to replace Brandon Johnson with those 11 touchdowns because he was so valuable. I think Ryan O'Keefe only had 4 touchdowns, receiving touchdowns last year. So who's going to, replace those 11 touchdowns? I know Kobe Hudson's 100%. A good guy, but I want to see that competition. I know they're going to come out enthusiastic.
The worst case scenario is that they rotate and they help.
They can rotate, yeah. They can definitely rotate those guys.
And Kobe could play any of the 3 spots. He's give or take 195 pounds or whatever.
Yes, sir.
So if Jalen gets banged up and has to miss a game, Kobe moves up, then you start the other Jalen. You know what I mean? It's just
it's not really a drop off. So.
Yeah, I mean they have different ways to consume that depth chart with different types of play. It'll be fine. That's a good problem.
The bigger Joey Gatewood. He's 6'5". He might
at some point, I would hope. I mean, he doesn't know the wide receiver craft yet, and that's hard. But he's obviously been a part of the passing game for 4 years, so I think he'll contribute more of a back half of the season guy. And more reps for him, the better. He needs a bunch.
Come in and block. He could be a good blocking component as well. He's a bigger guy, 6'5", 220.
100%. All right, now the group that you and I are absolutely clueless, and I'm guessing even Gus and the Knights are a little bit clueless about because they still need more additions. So this question is somewhat premature, and I apologize for that, but I'm still curious. Linebacker.
Yeah.
I know Jeremiah is going to be a guy. He's going to be one of the starters. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
But not only who's the other starter, what depth do they have? Because Terence Lewis is expected to be a starter, but he's coming off a knee. Man. He's not really full go. I don't think he's playing in the game tomorrow.
No.
And I highly doubt they have much depth behind Jeremiah. Like Jeremiah is not going to come off the field. No, I'm worried about him getting banged up and down the end of the
That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a guy to replace Tatum Bethune off the rip because that guy was like that
was a huge loss.
All game, 20 tackles type guy. Then you got to replace Bryson Armstrong. That's your 1 and 2. Your top tacklers on the team. So I'm pretty sure we put a couple polls on Twitter, and linebacker was the most skeptical position because nobody truly knows. But like you said, Jeremiah has the most in-game experience. And 100%. Terence Lewis is a former 5-star. He had his senior season. He had over like 150 tackles and like 50 tackles for loss. So we know he can play. But who's going to emerge? Like we got John Powell and Quay Mosier, like we talked about. But those are like smaller linebackers, and Divide's playing that night position, but he's smaller himself. So who emerges as that second linebacker, third linebacker behind? Oh wait, we do got the Eastern Illinois kid. We can't forget about him, Jason Johnson. Sorry guys, this kid, is transferred in from Eastern Illinois. He's a smaller guy. We just looked, he's 6'2", 190, but still, how many?
200 listed. He had 112 tackles. I don't care what level you play at. That's a lot of tackles.
FCS All-American, so he's a productive guy, and he's coming in to fill in that third position. So, give me your insights. Give me that OG insight on the linebacker position, Brian.
I think part of it is how and when Terence comes back, not only healthy, but what kind of cardio shape is he in?
Yeah.
Because knee means you can't run. It means you can't sprint. There's just no cure for it.
Yes, sir.
So he's one of the most freakish athletes I've ever been around, and I've seen him play live multiple times.
Yeah.
He's still coming off an ACL.
Crazy. Yeah, that ACL, man. How does he?
It is what it is, bro. It is what it is.
Yeah, you know how that is, man.
So do they move somebody in his spot? I mean, like Jeremiah, I assume will play the middle spot. He's the bigger guy. He's 230.
Sure.
Now who plays the other one, and do they rotate guys in and out? Divide's essentially playing a linebacker spot, that strong safety kind of spot. And Alabama runs the exact same scheme because you don't need a third linebacker in college football really anymore. And then the other part of that, you got to have depth.
Got to, man.
So Johnson and Terence.
Those are your
one's going to play Will, one's going to help.
Those are your rotation guys, yeah.
When you play a more run-heavy team, maybe both of them play, and Divide either comes out of the lineup or plays safety, or you know what I mean? I think they're going to move guys around, but you talk about a position
that's where they're
with no room for injury. I mean, that's just not realistic. Yeah. They need at least one more transfer.
Yeah,
at minimum.
I know they're looking too, but that's the biggest issue. That's a good.
Yeah, so's everybody else. So's Georgia and Alabama, and they just played the national title game.
You can't.
You
have enough linebackers and defensive ends and stuff like that. So
no, so I expect UCF to keep looking, but does anybody show themselves? Jeremiah, we know is going to play. Yeah. I just want him to get through the game healthy.
Do we know if the Eastern Illinois kids playing in the spring game?
I would assume so.
Okay,
but
he's healthy. He's wavered. He's good. He's good to go. So he's in.
I'm only concerned about this. Is awful to say, and knock on wood. They need to see them play chemistry and all that.
Yep.
But you can't have one of them get hurt. It's the conundrum.
Maybe they let John play. He made a couple tackles in the last few games. Maybe they just let him play and see what his progression looked like. Maybe from that last game.
It's possible. Yeah. It's always a roll of the dice, though. But again, as you and I talked off the air, Malzahn decided with his staff to have the quarterbacks live in a scrimmage recently. Again, they run a offense based on the quarterback getting outside the pocket and making plays.
Right.
You got to see who can break tackles.
Yeah.
Plumlee obviously can break a heck of a lot of tackles. Keene's a better athlete than he's given credit for, and then Castellanos is a flat-out freak. So you have that going for you, but that also means the linebackers are getting blocked. You know, I mean, if somebody like Jeremiah gets hurt, it could cost you 2 or 3 games because they're just so thin at linebacker.
Like you said, that's one position where you can't have somebody get hurt.
It's a tough situation, and they've got guys coming in that are freshmen, but they're not physically ready, in my opinion, to take on that kind of beating. They'll be more situational guys, 3rd and 8 guys that can play in coverage. They're not going to – 1st down and 10, Jeremiah is the only guy on the roster that's healthy now and has experience. That's a 1st and 10 linebacker, in my opinion. That knows the whole 9 yards that you would want playing at the Power 5 level, which is what they've getting ready to go into. It's just weird that line's so deep. Yeah, in linebackers, it's just bizarre.
Right, every position is probably almost deep, but linebackers, man, this is crazy.
It's hard. So it is what it is. In that vein, because we mentioned Divide, the next question is tight end.
This is completely different. This is deep.
It is, and it's a good problem. They can move Divide up to that quote-unquote night position, which is a hybrid safety linebacker, plays over the slot or the overhang, however you want to qualify it. They've talked about him moving up. Okay? Yeah. That's one guy. Now, Perry, the kid transferring in from Austin Peay, is expected to be one of the safeties.
Yep.
However, we haven't heard much in terms of the circumstance of what the other safety is going to be. Is it Dylan Wester? Do they,
This might be the most confusing position.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's a good problem.
Right. Good problem.
Like Jarvis Ware is a safety that missed last year. Maybe they find a way to get him in the lineup a little bit at some point this season at safety.
He's a guy that can play, though.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And it's like, how far back is he from a knee injury? I have no idea.
Like we talked about off air, like we're obviously, Devontae Brown's going to be your guy that's emerging as an NFL prospect.
That's why we didn't even mention him. You and I like in the middle of last year.
About him, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not paying attention to the show, but Devontae Brown is an NFL guy. But then you got Damio, you got Thornton, you got Perry, you got Hodges, Dylan Lester, Quadric Bullard. A lot of these guys can play safety and defensive back, cornerback position, but they got a lot of depth now. So it's like, where do you plug these guys in, and who comes out starting on game day?
And then the other one is Adams.
And you got Brandon Adams, 6'3". He can play. He's been playing cornerback, like you mentioned, but he's a safety, man. He's a natural safety, man.
I think he can play either. He's just
as
he fills out, I think he'll end up at safety long term if he has an NFL future. But at the college level, especially playing in zone coverage, I don't think it matters that much. He's so big and so long; he's a pain to get around.
Like Richie Grant, that guy was a dog at that safety position for UCF.
So my prediction, and I don't know what you think, is that UCF's flat out going to move guys around. We're going to see some oddball combinations. Yeah. I know I'm going to snap some photos and just say, go back and look later. Okay, well, in this one, they ran cover 2, but so-and-so was at safety. This one, they ran cover 1. They moved into – I bet you there's some mixed matching.
Mm-hmm. It's a good problem, like we said. It's a good problem to have. But, man, they got so much depth at that defensive secondary position.
That's the understatement. It's funny because historically, corner and D-end are the spots that they probably have the biggest problem. It's the hardest spots to recruit. They're premier positions. Everybody wants them, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. UCF, corner is in good shape.
Corner's good
safety
shape.
Should be because they have an overflow corner. That'll take care of itself.
Miss and match.
It's crazy. And then that kind of leads to this. Defensive tackle, they have Ricky Barber, and they have the guy that I've been tooting his horn all spring, and that's Lee Hunter.
I'll let you handle this one because you got some. The
first part, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. There is nobody in the AAC that's going to sniff the starting talent that UCF has at D tackle. Ain't happening. They got 2 NFL guys. Ooh. That's not a discussion.
You dropping that on the daily night.
There it is. It is. But that's not a shot. I mean, if anybody's seen Lee Hunter walk by him, and I have, he walked by me the other day. I was going to the press conference. I was like, oh.
And then you put Ricky Barber. Those are 2 big.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Ricky can pass rush for a 3 technique, which is a rare skill. And now you have to double team Lee Hunter.
Yeah, that guy's.
Go ahead and not do it. Go ahead. So
that's a power. That's a real SEC. Yeah, like we know, that's a big old SEC.
He's an NFL player. Lee Hunter is 3 years out of high school, and he will play in the National Football League. Now, who do you put, and how do you do your edges? And that's this next and final question we're talking about.
Yeah.
In my opinion, the most talented / experienced should be the most productive player on the roster is Tre'mon Morris-Brash. I told that to him on the field in Tampa after the game. He looked at me kind of crazy, and I said, no, you're my number 1 guy for next year because you've earned that.
Yeah.
And your physical skill, you're just getting better. And now he's going to get singled all the time.
Right. And it's not about like we said off air, it's not all about stats with Tre'mon. It's the things that he does that's not recorded, man. Those quarterback hurries and those double teams he forces. So he's definitely an impact player that we're looking to be, the number 1 guy on the defense next year.
I mean, he impacts games when his stats don't change. And it's twofold. Number 1, do we chip him or do something like that changes your routes? Or do you just run away from him, et cetera? It changes your whole play call. Man. He didn't even do anything. He just showed up. That's when you start having big-time defensive plays because then some other guy that's not as talented is in a position to make a play. Yeah. So that's the difference on defense between teams like Georgia and other schools is they got multiple of those guys. Exactly. To get there, it's just recruiting. UCF has trended hard in that direction up front in the last year because they got KD McDaniel. That's one of the guys you and I talked about. Mentioned him from Kentucky. Yeah, I mean, he can play down or up. So we're excited to see, and that's one of the other reasons we want to see them go against that starting O-line.
That's why, we want to see the ones go against the ones. Like this is the perfect,
even it's just a series,
right?
It matters.
Yes, sir.
It does. So
and
who do
Josh,
you think?
But like you said, I think you made a good point because I do think Tre'mon is the impact player on that defensive line because he's going to get those singles because Lee Hunter and Ricky Barber, they're going to draw so much attention. Yeah. You got Josh or KD coming off the edge. So that defensive line, is looking productive coming up next season.
That's 3 NFL players.
Yeah.
Well, then we don't know what KD has yet. And then you got Josh Seliscar as well. I don't know how they're going to do that. I mean, again, it's
rotation. Kind of they can rotate them, man. Somebody gets tired, we throw in Josh. Or
I don't know how they're going to do it
first. I don't know how they do.
Because sometimes they run 3-3-5, sometimes they run 4-2-5, sometimes
it's
they run
really up to Travis how he wants to come out and how he wants to attack.
They'll match personnel, but that's again they have the personnel to do it, and nobody's going to block UCF's interior. That really doesn't change a lot in college football, regardless of front. Can you block the nose guard? Everything starts with a guy right in front of the ball. Yes, when that guy's a terror, it's a pain in the butt for the coordinator because they'll never admit it publicly. It changes your play sheet.
Yes, sir.
Lee
Hunter is a play sheet changer.
Oh, yeah.
A big old guy in the middle of the field. So I'm excited to see how – I want to see him go against Sam Jackson and Matt Lee and see how his hamstring and see what it looks like in that trenches battle right there. You should be interested in that.
Well, that's my gig.
That's your gig.
I just like watching it. It's fun. Yeah, not many guys are going to do much against them, but that's part of the reason you have the scrimmage to see how everybody plays off of that because he can make up for a lot of ills for not just the linemen, but the linebackers. It's so thin.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. The only other thing is does anybody just randomly surprise, whether it's a running back? Johnny Richardson is one of my favorite players, as you know. Maybe he rips off 2 long runs of 30-plus yards.
I think
how do you do this?
I think if they give RJ Harvey some reps, I think that guy surprises some people because they haven't seen him for a whole season. But if you look at his build, he looks like he's ready to go.
I don't know if he's even playing or if they're leaving him off limits because they want to get I have no idea, and I would understand because they want to get him to next fall.
Okay.
But I know he's been limited at certain times.
I just think they let the training wheels, at least for a couple possessions, let the training wheels off and let them get some live game action and let them, because you're going to have to see how the leg looks. You can't keep them, restrained forever. So
it just depends on his rehab is going and whether he's been cleared. That's not a Gus decision. So
we know that. But that's what I'm interested in seeing, man.
Oh, 100%.
That guy,
I don't know
if he can put him in the slot. You can play him at running back.
Him and Johnny Richardson are basically the same player. He's just a little thicker.
He can put him back there with Isaiah Bowser. You can fake it to Plumlee or fake it to him. So RJ Harvey's he looks interesting.
Oh, absolutely. That could be your IndyCar package with him and putting the 2 receivers that are coming back. And then you could take out Bowser and you could put Johnny in.
And you put those 2 speedy guys with Ryan O'Keefe in the slot or Jaylon, and then you got your 2 bigger. They got a lot of things that they can do. Like Gus Malzahn has a lot of weapons that he can use. So I'm ready to. I'm excited. I know the fans are excited as well. And I want them to comment below, like who are they interested in seeing, kind of before and after the thing. So, yeah,
it's pretty interesting. So, well, man, I guess that kind of wraps it up. I'm going to be on campus early tomorrow, kind of walking around, seeing what's going on with tailgating, and then head over to the stadium and watch some football.
I'll likely be a fan tomorrow because my girl wants to go. So I'll be there. I'll be a fan though.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I don't think I've watched the UCF game as a fan, as being a student. So it'll probably be my first time.
That's okay. Everybody got to have a little fun once in a while. So
yeah.
All right. Well, everybody be safe. We'll be at the spring game tomorrow. Everybody take care.
Peace.